Pelletier's on the art. Paul Pelletier's on the art. For this issue and for several more.
Live from the Talking Joe Studios, it's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's me, Mark, and welcome to the G.I. Joe Comics Podcast. It's Talking Joe, and today we have got a special issue because, once again, Paul Pelletier is on the art and also joining us in the studio very shortly as we look at our deep dive into G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 320, released Wednesday, September the 3rd, which, at time of recording, was just this last Wednesday. And in that issue, the synopsis tells us that Ninja Team unleashed. The Joes take the war to Cobra. So will that happen in this issue? As promised, we will find out as we discuss it. But we will not be discussing it alone. As always, I will be joined by my Real American co-host. It's Tim Finn.
Hello, Mark, and hello, listeners and viewers. Let's bring in our guests.
And just before we do that, I'll say that we are live. So if you do have any comments and questions as we go along, please do feel free to add them into the chat, and we will see them as we go along. Just like Shane Simic. Yo, Talkie Joe, yo, Shane. And without further ado, let's introduce our special guest. It's Paul.
Hey, guys. I gotta say,
once again.
That song at the beginning of the intro was quite impressive. That was very nice, very nice.
That's all Mark does from the moment we end an episode until when we record a week later. He's just working on jingles.
Yeah.
Ignores his family, doesn't eat, doesn't have a job, just jingles.
Well, artistic vision needs a lot of focus, so I mean, that's understandable. So.
But is it art? I guess if Paul says it is, then let's go with that. So, I guess as an intro for people who are maybe less familiar with you, Paul, you are an American comic book penciler. You got started professionally in 1992. You've had long runs with lots of different publishers: DC, Marvel, CrossGen. But more important than anything else, we're celebrating the publication of your 10th issue on G.I. Joe with the release of issue 320. So 5-issue run, 306 to 310, joining after Chris Mooneyham, and 316 to 320, again, alternating with Chris Mooneyham. But that is not all, because we know that you will be back for more. The solicit for 322 has come out with a beautiful looking snowy cover, change of scenery. So that's going to be maybe my first question. Where are you with drawing G.I. Joe right now as we record 6th of September 2025?
Well, I just completed the first half of 324. And with page 10 of that was my 250th page drawn for G.I. Joe. So it's time flies. It's really speeding along. Yeah, originally I was supposed to do up to 320, and then I was supposed to have a break of 4 or 5 issues. And the editor contacted me. He's like, "Got a little scheduling hiccup here. Can you jump back on with 322 and do like 3 issues in a row?" It's like, Sure. That's that's what I do. I try to do that monthly grind thing and just try to hit those deadlines. So if I could help out, sure, why not?
Paul, can you tell us about the monthly grind? Because there are 31 days in most months, and there are 20 pages in most comics these days. Mm-hmm. So do you work Monday through Friday? What's your schedule like?
Yeah, Monday through Friday, definitely for the regular monthly GI Joe type, like a monthly book. Yeah, I try to crank out a page a day, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on what Larry's throwing at me. But there are times where, if you've seen my site, I'll post pinups every once in a while. I'll do those in the off hours, and sometimes I'll draw a little bit over the weekend. But yeah, I gotta constantly remind myself to get away from the artboard sometimes and do something else. So, but yeah, I think ever since working at CrossGen, it really hammered into me working business hours instead of, hey, I don't feel like drawing this morning, so I'll go do something else, and then all of a sudden it's evening, you haven't gotten any work done. If I try to keep a steady schedule, it definitely helps out.
Are you, while you're drawing these 3 additional issues of G.I. Joe, is there some other art project that you are also overlapping on, or are you kind of just on G.I. Joe right now?
I'm just starting another project for Titan Comics, which will probably take the next 4 months or so, 4+ months. So the plan is me returning on G.I. Joe probably like the 1st of next year. So I'm kind of juggling a couple things right now. I'm just starting the new project and then finishing up my last issue, 324 of G.I. Joe. And
a connected question to that, you had a gap when Chris Meaningham came back for his second arc, doing 311 through to 315. During that time, were you sort of getting ahead with your next issues, or were you off doing something different?
You're right, Guy did those 3 fill-in issues on Geiger, and I had a Christmas story for DC, a Dead Man Christmas story, but no, the Geiger stuff took up my time, and then I jumped back on the G.I. Joe stuff to try and get ahead on that. So,
when in the schedule did you do the 0 hour 30th anniversary special?
I think that was towards the end of my it's all going to get discombobulated in my head. I think that I started working on that towards the end of my run on initial run on G.I. Joe. So I was, and then I had like 3 or 4 things going at once. That's the thing a lot of people don't realize with being a freelance comic book artist. Sometimes, deadlines and projects overlap and you end up having to draw. Like at one point I was drawing some of that DC stuff. I was drawing a Turtles one-shot for a gaming company that was a San Diego exclusive, and I was drawing G.I. Joe at the same time. So it was quite a lot.
I have one more question about Geiger, because I was already reading that, and then all of a sudden you were drawing some issues, and I was already reading G.I. Joe, and all of a sudden you were drawing some issues. Which is better? Maybe the question is, do you see differences in how Jeff Johns approaches a script, or how it feels to come into one established universe versus how Larry Hama does, or how it feels to come into another established universe?
I enjoy working with Jeff Johns quite a bit, and it always stuns me when he gives me a shout to do work for him, because you look at the stable of artists they have for Ghost Machine, and it's like, Ghost Machine. It used to be Mad Ghost, now it's Ghost Machine. They have just top of the line, amazing artists. I think I was the first guy to be brought in to do fill-in work for them. But the thing is, with Jeff, he's writing so many books, and his attentions are diverted, because I think he's still doing stuff with Hollywood, movies, TV, and that kind of stuff. So when I was working on the Geiger stuff, the script was coming in piecemeal, a few pages here, a few pages there. I mean, it was quality stuff, but it was hard to really get a good flow going. Whereas with Larry, I mean, he pumps out scripts months in advance. So I'll get the entire script each time, or the plot, because very rarely does Larry put like all the dialogue in the plot. So that was a bit of a difference. I mean, with Larry, it's like I know exactly what's going to be happening in the story because I get the entire script. With the Geiger stuff, it was a little more piecemeal, so that made it a little more difficult. But you know, it was a nice break in between the G.I. Joe madness and you know, just doing something a little different for a little while. And then when I jumped back on G.I. Joe, I was like, oh, this is kind of nice. Even though, you know, to this point, even though I've done 10 issues, G.I. Joe is still a very challenging book for me to draw. But it was nice coming back that second run.
So just into the comments, Greg Augustin chipping in, been a fan of Paul's work ever since Malibu's Ex-Mutants. So in for the long haul there. Nice to see Greg. And look who we've got. It's Diana Davis. Say her name 3 times and she will appear. I was thrilled when Paul manifested himself on the team. He's amazing to work with. Thanks, Diana.
Yeah. So I'm sure Diana's had a couple nights though where she was shaking her fists. we get into little arguing matches sometimes because she knows the G.I. Joe universe so well, and I'm so ignorant of it. So sometimes we bump heads. She's fantastic to work with. I think I'd be in deep trouble if I weren't working with her on the book.
Good. She's a good person to have in your corner for sure. Making sure you don't go too far off the track.
Yep.
Speaking of manifestation, when we were sort of last chatting, you mentioned that as much as you're enjoying G.I. Joe, it would be nice to have a change of scenery, and it looks like possibly we've manifested that because like the first issue always, from 301 through to 320 has been this epic Civil War continuing storyline, essentially moving from one issue to the next, or one ongoing story. And it feels like possibly with the this issue we're kind of seeing the conclusion a lot of those threads, and it looks like we're picking up with brand new adventure in snowy lands of some description with 322 and a kind of probably a new cast of characters as well. So new casts, new locations. Does it almost feel like a new book?
Two new locations and different cast of characters in each one. But it's essentially kind of the same story arc, but it's kind of interesting how it's put together. So we have the snowy aspect, and then we also have a desert team. So it's kind of interesting.
Dreams.
Can I ask a question? So G.I. Joe is not a war comic, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that genre, but it's the closest thing modern comics have to a war comic. It's an action comic. Right. I know you talked about drawing gear and vehicles, but sort of separate from that is drawing an action comic and not quite a war comic. How does that feel different, or does that scratch an itch that you've had that's separate from drawing a sci-fi comic, a cosmic superhero comic, or sort of a standard superhero comic?
Well, I mean, I think sometimes, at least in the case of G.I. Joe, we're talking a lot of missiles and guns and, things that fire at longer range. Like a lot of times with superhero comics, if you have a, beating them up fist fight type stuff, it's a little more personal. It's up close. Whereas with G.I. Joe, a lot of times it's firing at long distances. So that makes the storytelling a little different. And there's such a focus on vehicles and different kind of vehicles and tech in G.I. Joe that, again, like I said, for me, it's a challenge. I'd like to think I'm getting a little better as I go along with it. But I mean, for me, break it down. Like if I'm watching movies, I'm much more Coen Brothers, like Miller's Crossing or Big Lebowski, than I am Fast and Furious. So I kind of carry that. Those are the kind of comics I generally tend to gravitate towards more to a little more sense of humor, a little more character stuff. So, but like I said, I mean, I've drawn so much over my career that it's kind of nice to add something a little different every once in a while. And G.I. Joe definitely has been a challenge.
I thought we could maybe have a look at some of the pencils from your. Let's do this one. Here we go. Hold on. This one. Here we go. Some of your pencils from your first 10 issues, and maybe sort of those can kind of prompt some discussion of how it felt with some of these particular locations, scenes, characters. So I guess here's the first issue. We've got a great opening sequence there with Zartan on his swamp skier. Very sort of flashy, splashy opening sequence. Was there a lot of pressure on this as your opening page to really make an impression?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And the other thing that added even more pressure is I knew I was following Chris Mooneyham, and seeing some of his previous work in the previous 2 or 3 issues. It was daunting. It really was. And then on top of that, I hadn't seen his pencils for issue 305 yet. So I was worried that what I was doing here wasn't going to match up with what he was doing. But yeah, I mean, it definitely was anytime I come in on a new project, it's always kind of intimidating, especially if I'm following a tremendous artist. And Geiger was the same way. I'm following Gary Frank, and Gary's just amazing. So yeah, there's always pressure. And for me, it takes a good 3 or 4 issues into a book for me to really start feeling grounded and having a better sense of what I'm doing in the book.
And friend of the show, Shane, shouted out that he owns this particular page on screen, and I don't blame him, because it's a great page. But yeah, they weren't, you weren't allowed to be eased gradually into this book, because you were thrown into the middle of this epic civil war saga between, Serpentor Khan and his mutantized cobras, sort of invading Springfield with, I guess, all of the vehicles that go along with that as well. So we're on your second issue, 307 here, with a page which isn't too untypical for what you had to draw across those first few issues of masses of vehicles.
Well, and that's where Diana came in very handy. She kind of was steering me on. It's like, well, this vehicle's not quite right, and always you got to remember to write in the numbers on the HISS tanks and that kind of stuff. So yeah, she was very helpful with pages like that.
And very particular costumes. Here we have a Televiper and a Range Viper, although maybe there's some leeway because the Range Viper is a mutant, so you can draw some lumpy shapes.
Right. Yeah, and that's the continuing. Larry has a tendency to throw the kitchen sink at the artist working on the book, so he definitely he keeps us on our toes.
It must be fun drawing some of the mutant characters as well, sort of, because you can, you could kind of push the envelope a little bit more. You don't have to keep them looking too pretty.
Yeah, I mean, the tough thing is, for a while they were described as mutant cyborgs. So I wasn't sure if I should go more towards like the cyborg aspect or lumpy, goofy looking mutants or what. So it's kind of trying to tread that fine line.
One of my very favorites was the kind of the Cthulhu tentacle version of the Techno Viper there, directing traffic.
That's I mean, ideally the kind of stuff I really, really enjoy drawing is stuff that I can just kind of make up as I go. so stuff like that, yeah, that was a lot of fun.
You had mentioned Larry Hama throws in the kitchen sink, and I think sort of a counter example might be, and this is a hypothetical, but it certainly has happened. If someone is drawing a Superman comic, there may be a splash page in that comic, which is just a drawing of Superman flying at you. And the background is some speed lines and some clouds. Maybe it's a bunch of city and we're looking down at it.
Right.
But these 3 pages we've just looked at, Zartan on his skiff, Cobra rumbling through, a faction of Cobra rumbling through a small U.S. city, some aviation taxiing here with lots of different character costumes. There is almost never a page in a G.I. Joe comic which might just be Snake Eyes or Storm Shadow, full body with no background, maybe some speed lines, just sort of standing there cool or jumping. It's probably going to be a panel like this where we're looking down at a jet. There's a funny looking tank. There's some zombies on the back of the tank. There's the person who's kind of a zombie directing traffic with the light up orange things that they use at airports. We see the planes again from a different angle. We see the other guys again from a different angle.
Right.
And I guess as an example,
that's one of the things I've chatted with the editor on the book a little bit. It's like, because just telling them it wouldn't hurt every once in a while to have a hero shot. Yeah. not only because, fans enjoy hero shots, but it's a nice little breather for the artist too. Is that, okay, we have this stuff is super dense with tons of characters going on. Be nice to have something where you can just breathe easy a little bit. But I think that the longer I go in the book, the more I'm feeling comfortable with shifting things around a little bit, so I can maybe open up and have a splashier shot of a character, or I'm getting, like I said, it usually takes me good 4 issues to really get an understanding of how I should approach the book. And then with something like G.I. Joe, there's so much stuff going on, it might have taken me a little longer. But as I go along, I'm feeling more comfortable with trying to put a little more of myself into it than just sticking exactly to what's in the script.
As an example of a hero shot here, we've got a close to splash page from issue 308 there with the Cobra Commander battle armor. But in terms of making it easy on you, this is not a simple splash page, because that's a very particular costume, and then another flanked by a series of 3 plus 2 more Cobras in their very particular costumes. So I don't think this one was necessarily much of a time saver for you.
No, that's for sure. I mean, yeah, and it's one thing to draw like a single splash of characters like this, but when you get into a situation where you have to draw them over and over again and try to keep them looking right, that's that's like I always said, I love like the Jack Kirby design for Galactus, but if you're just drawing him straight on, it's one thing, but if you have to draw him from different angles, but different, trying to keep that costume looking the same from panel to panel, not an easy thing. And that's a lot of these G.I. Joe costumes are like that too.
I also think about the different sort of needs of these characters. Galactus was originally only going to be in comics. G.I. Joe characters were always meant to be toys,
right?
Who very soon were also animated, and from the get-go were drawn into comics. And sometimes I sort of think of the sort of furthest example down this path that I can, which is the comic books that adapted and told additional stories of the live-action Transformers movies, right? The Michael Bay Transformers movies had comics adaptations and sequels, and the artists who drew those, I mean, those are hard. Transformers already are hard to draw, and the movie characters particularly so. But I look at something like this, and as a kid, I loved holding the Heat Viper.
Right.
As someone holding a pencil, oof.
Well, and that was one of the issues we had when Marvel started putting out their movies and DC started putting out movies. The company started wanting the characters in the books to look similar or look like the characters in the movies. And it's one thing to construct a costume once for someone to wear, and it's got all this piping and all this intricate detail. it's another thing to have to draw that costume over and over again in a comic. And I don't think sometimes they didn't quite understand that, but we artists just have to suck it up and just try to do the best we can with it.
I mean, you definitely get paid more the more complicated the costumes, right?
No. I wish.
On the screen now from 309, this is the sort of opening splash page. We get this is one of your originated characters, really. It's a really cool design of this sort of mutant frag viper with his kind of high-lie thrower device, cesta device, all kind of mutantized and organically part of his arm. Can you tell us a little about coming up with this guy?
I think this is one of those times where I started feeling a little more comfortable with opening up and kind of doing my own thing with it. And that's just having fun with it. I just, not very, I don't use the long vertical panels like that very often. And it just felt like a good way to try to get a nice full body shot of this mutated goofy dude jumping out of the plane. So just me having fun. I tend to enjoy stuff that skews, that like I call stupid. And it's just like, hey, it's comic book. Let's have fun and then just do some goofy stuff with it.
Cool. Diana in the chat calls out the use of the cyborgs. They had to be cyborgs because it helped us get a little more gore past the Hasbro review. They had long-time rules against bloody splits from human or living characters. Yeah, so the less human, I guess the more discretion you've got to sort of push the envelope in level of gore and violence. Lovely.
Diana gave me, when I first started on the book, she gave me one of the nicest compliments. It's like when I started turning in pages, she said, she sent me an email. It's like, wow, you must have been a really big G.I. Joe fan growing up. And I was like, I responded, it's like, no, I'm just professional. I just try to do the best I can. So I felt, well, I must be on the right track if she's saying that then. So it was very cool of her to say.
Next up, there's this sequence of the car fire with Dawn. Dawn is a character that you captured very nicely in your run so far. Is she one of your favorites, or do you have any particular favorite characters that sort of give you a little bit of a smile when you see their name pop up in the script and then you have to draw them?
Not really, because every time I might like a character, the next issue they're not in it, and it's like 5 completely new characters. so it's hard for me to really get connected to a certain character. I actually enjoyed drawing the goofy Dreadnoks characters, because they're just fun and they have a little more character to them. But again, it's like they appeared for a little bit and then they disappear for a while. So it's hard for me to really get my hopes up seeing a character and then realizing they're probably not going to be around for too long. But Dawn's interesting because she's also got I don't know how you pronounce it, the symbol that she's got on her chest. And I kept drawing it wrong, and Diana was getting on me. He's like, oh, you got to draw this the right way. It's like, oh. Which is cool because she and Larry finally sent a breakdown for exactly what that symbol was supposed to be and how it works. And hopefully I'll be a little better drawing it properly from now on.
Paul, you've done conventions where people have brought G.I. Joe comics for you to sign, or you have drawn G.I. Joe characters. Have you met people with this symbol as a tattoo?
Not yet.
It's coming.
No, I don't believe so. Yeah, I remember years ago when I was on Negation with CrossGen, there was a female fan that actually had the Negation symbol tattooed on her back, and it's like, okay, it's like, it's a little creepy, but very cool at the same time. So no, I don't believe I've seen a tattoo like that yet, but yeah, I'm sure I will see.
Just another bit that it's not just the editor and the creative consultant that want you to get that right.
That's right.
It's dozens
Yeah,
and
I'll get a
dozens.
show. I'll get a punch upside the head. You got it wrong.
Yeah, Tim won't take off his shirt and show you the Arashikage tattoo across his shoulder blades. That's fine. And here's I picked this one out just as a slightly different change of tone, because you do get to ping around all sorts of different locales and characters and moods even. So this sort of sequence with Baroness, sneaking about in the darkness with a blade sort of struck me as a slightly different page to the rest of the mutant madness.
Yeah, that was an interesting one, because I mean I've never really thought of myself being one of my strengths of drawing like heavy shadow and that kind of feel. So I was really trying to go for kind of like an old EC like horror type comic with the heavy shadows and kind of the like the over the top dramatic suspense. And I don't know, I was pretty proud of the way it turned out.
Yeah, it's a very handsome page, and there's a real contrast here from one to another. You've got Mindbender with his brand new freaky deaky. Does that work? Design, which I think Larry Hama sort of sketched out for you to kind of interpret. Was it fun coming up or being the first person to draw and fine tune this design?
Yeah, and the only thing I contributed to this costume, and it was something that Diana actually said must be a part of it, because I had drawn a couple of alternate designs for Mindbender, and but we ended up going with Larry's. But the only thing that stuck from mine was, if you notice, his monocle's got a little like mechanical thing that attaches to the back of his head. And Diana's like, "Oh, we got to keep that. That's the coolest thing, because you could move around if we wanted to." So that was something that she really wanted to see.
Yeah. He's wild. And then here's a page from, this is 318, but could potentially be one of your issues, because we always have at least one page per issue, sort of back in the pit. Duke is looking at the screens and directing things, and I guess each time it looks ever so slightly different. So each time, I guess you must be pushing yourself for another way to show this.
I'm just making things up as I go. It's like, oh, well, let's see, let's see how far I can push like Kirby tech and well, it's, Diana, Cyberpunk monocle. There you go. No, I when it comes to the pit stuff, it's like for me, it's really challenging to draw anything where people are looking at screens. And then I have to draw stuff that's on the screens at the same time and all that kind of stuff. It's a real challenge. So a lot of times I'll just fill the page with computer stuff. It's like,
Paul, when you say challenge, do you mean because it's not exciting, or do you mean because of like drawing actual tech and perspective and shadows?
The tech and that kind of stuff is fine, but like in the background in that panel 1, is a shot of Storm Shadow and Dawn going into the sewers. So I like drawing the actual scene versus drawing a scene that's being watched on a computer screen, if that makes any sense. It's like a scene within a scene, and it just, for me, it's a really challenging to do that. A lot of times if I, I'll just put a note on the side of the page and tell the colorist or somebody else, drop in an image from another page, so that way I don't have to draw a little scene inside a computer screen.
As a persnickety reader who's always looking for that kind of Photoshop copy and paste, I appreciate it when the artist has drawn something original to go onto that screen, whether it's on the original art or comped in from elsewhere. But
right. Well, I mean, granted, it looks better, I guess, on the original artwork when it's all drawn in. But yeah, it's kind of pain in the butt for me. So. And we get a ton of those scenes where it's a lot of people looking at screens and it's like,
I haven't read Negation, but that's people on a spaceship, right? Surely there's like some Star Trek-y bridge stuff with people sitting at consoles looking at monitors, right?
There were, but fortunately in the cross-gen, experience, we were all in the same studio. So I was sitting right next to the colorist. So it would make it easy. It was really easy for me to say, hey, just drop in this image, from this page or what. So it made it a lot easier instead of having me having to go in and draw everything on the computer screens.
And then let's skip across to the Highlands of Scotland as Cobra Commander makes his getaway. And I'll just drop in the comment that Tim made last time, which was that, hey, Paul Pelletier draws a very good-looking sheep. So who would have thought you'd be drawing quite so many sheep?
Yeah, not me. Yeah, that definitely was something different. So yeah, I mean, again, Larry will throw the kitchen sink, and I'm surprised I haven't drawn a kitchen sink yet in the book. So
there are. I think I'm now perhaps in a 324 or a future issue. Now I'll look for like in the rubble around Springfield where someone's rebuilding a house. I will just look for a kitchen sink.
You won't see it in 324. I guess.
Okay.
Because like you were saying with 322, it's got the snowy scenario according to the cover and stuff. Well, 324 is a completely different scenario again. So
part of why these sheep jumped out at me is that there are comics artists who are great at drawing people and spaceships and swords and superhero costumes and action and talking, but who aren't great at drawing animals. And there are comics artists who, like if you've drawn a Conan book or a certain kind of like medieval book, you might draw a lot of horses or like buffalo or, big beasts and bears and dragons. And, if someone's got the fundamentals, if they can draw people, they could probably also draw animals. If they can draw, perspective, they can probably draw most kinds of buildings, can probably draw most kinds of vehicles and guns. But there are artists with specialties, and there's some great comics artists who draw great looking people, but you sort of notice they have a hard time drawing kids. And so, and I don't know that we've seen sheep many times in G.I. Joe, and I certainly had not seen any sheep that month in reading, mainstream American comics. And yet, because of Destro and his castle and that village, we might see sheep in G.I. Joe. So I was just happy. When I was in college, I sometimes went to the zoo and drew animals because someone told me it was good practice, and it was. And it is hard because they don't stop moving. But I'll say it again: some good-looking sheep.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly from the original script, I was the one who chose to have that transition where I slapped in a close-up of the sheep. So, so that way we're transitioning from one to the other. I don't think I'm particularly great at drawing animals, but if I have enough inspiration or reference lying around, I can kind of fake my way through it. Because I don't know if you ever saw the Super Sons annual I did for DC years back. Originally, I had signed on to do the annual before I even knew what it was. And when I got the script from Peter Tomasi, it was all the super pets. So I had like Bat Hound and Crypto, and there was Supergirl's cat, and I had to draw Bat Cow. So I'm like, I don't draw animals. What the? But it was a crash course, and I was stunned at how many people absolutely loved that issue. And it was a genius stroke on Peter Tomasi's part, because there was hardly any dialogue in the book because it was all like bark, bark, woof, woof, this kind of stuff. So it's like, so it all kind of fell on me to draw any kind of like character, which is tough to do with animals, but I appreciate your compliments on the sheep. So
Diana chips in as well. Paul takes more time researching things than most people know. I've found out firsthand that his sheep knowledge is superior to mine, which is restricted to being knocked off my feet by one. And I imagine
that was a pretty tragic story from Diana, actually. So.
I imagine that month you're probably on Google Maps, sort of looking around the Scottish Highlands, trying to see what an escape route might look like from Cobra Commander.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, there's a certain look to the environment there that's not. I mean, I couldn't get away with drawing like palm trees or that kind of stuff. So, in fact, there's seems to be like very few trees, and it's very kind of hilly and rocky, and pastures. So I'm just looking at Diana's comments, just kind of cracked me up. But
and yeah. the final pitch page that I selected from your run so far was from 319. One of these big action sequences with Storm Shadow and Dawn in the sewers beneath Springfield, sort of taking on some of these Cobra troopers, and quite a lot of not holding back on the levels of violence there. We did particularly in the color as well. We did see some blood and slashing and so on. I guess there's some artistic choices to how much you decide to show on panel versus how much to leave up to the reader's imagination.
Yeah, well, I have a terrible habit of trying to draw everything on the page, so it's like, but I mean, every once in a while, I can get away with using silhouettes and leaving a little more to what the readers are thinking, but a lot of it depends what the story is dictating too. And I remember that scene. That was kind of a claustrophobic scene, since they're inside the tunnel and you get all these different characters. It was again, Larry challenges. He really does.
So the next segue was just to do a bit of G.I. Joe news, which was that Larry Hama had just released on his Facebook some of his sketches that he drew coming out of the list that he took at JoeCon. So his normal approach is to take a list at a con, work through those, and the person can pick them up on the day. And he made a special exception at JoeCon because he was so busy that he couldn't do his normal thing of drawing at his table. So he took them away and took a special exception to complete them at home and then post them out. So he's been sharing some of those, and they're, as always, glorious to behold. And we already talked about Larry sharing a design for Dr. Mindbender with you as part of this run, but has he done any other sort of sketches of how he sees things looking, or a particular location or anything like this, or has it all been just script and that Mindbender?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, for the most part, Larry's been very hands off as far as what I'm doing. Except for the Mindbender thing. Part of it was, I think, because like I said, I had turned in a sketch or two, but I mean, Larry's got such a connection to the characters that it would be automatic. I think he would have the right feel automatically for a redesign on a character. But no, I mean, for the most part, I just get the scripts from Larry and just go to town.
Very good. So we're sort of progressing into getting into the detail of 320. But before we did that, I did have a catch up of a point that we were discussing last issue, where we were looking at this specific panel and asking, is it one panel or two panels, because of that quite dark break sort of that was drawn in the middle. And without needing to ask Paul directly, by seeing the art that was posted on your website, I think we get the answer to that it looks like it was one single panel of Multo and Helix looking through two different doors before Multo went through one, and then Helix would have followed him behind.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those. One thing that's difficult in comics, and well, I think one of the goof ups I did was having a black background behind that panel. So when you saw the shadow behind the pillar, it kind of looks like a break in the panel. But when you have multiple actions going on in the same panel, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and that's why a lot of times we have to break things down from panel to panel, and so that makes it easier to see, oh, this is what's happening, versus your eye being drawn to one action in the panel and not realizing there's another action going on at the same time. So yeah, it's a different kind of storytelling than animation or film or whatnot. So that's one of those times where, yeah, I might not have been quite as successful as I was hoping with it.
It's only because we pay so much detail. I think any normal person would probably have looked at the panel, moved on, and not thought too hard about it. But for me and Tim, it's going to be a long discussion. Is that one panel? Is that two? Is that two? One door, two door?
It's supposed to be one panel. So, yep.
Very good. So let's get into 320. It is brought to us by the team that we know and love. Writer Larry Hama, penciler Paul Pelletier, rhymes with Pia. Inker Tony Kordos, colorist Francesco Segala, with flatter Sabrina del Grosso. Letterer is Pat Brousseau. And editor Alex Antone, rhymes with phone. Assistant editor, this is a new edition, Kate Lynn Chappell. Publication design, Jillian Crabb. Production design, Richard Mercado. And creative consultant, also in the chat, Diana Davis. So let's just pause on that new addition to the list there. Assistant editor Caitlin Chappell. Is that someone that you've had much interaction with directly, Paul?
A little bit. I mean, I copy her whenever I send in pages, but I think she was brought in to help streamline more of the behind the scenes stuff, like taking care of invoices when they're being sent in, more administrative things than actual creative content. But yeah, so I mean, she gets whenever I send in a page, she gets copied on it. But like I said, I think she was initially brought in to help Alex out with some of the behind the scenes type stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. So let's get into the covers, and maybe we'll cover these a little bit quicker than we normally might, mentioning no names. Tim.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
Cover A is drawn by Andy Kubert and colored by Laura Martin. This is very much a G.I. Joe cover because it's got a bunch of specific Joes in their costumes. Muskrat front and center, Helix, Wetsuit in his costume, though he's not in his costume in the issue. That gets a check plus from me because I want Joes in their costume on the covers, even if they're not on the inside.
You don't want them in ghillie suits?
I don't. I definitely want them to look like their toys. And then there's Molto. I think Andy Kubert misses a bit of that facial hair, and I don't know that this is quite Molto's costume, but he's very small on the cover. I'll allow it. They're standing on the Cobra Moray, the hydrofoil, which is fun, which means that this is some kind of escape or disguise. Joe's on a Cobra vehicle. In the background are 3 different kinds of Cobra jets. There's the Rattler, there's the Hurricane, and then there's the Condor, putting Mr. Kubert through his paces. There's a nice, bold, dark orange sky in the background. Lots of dramatic lighting, particularly on Muskrat as he's lit up from his machine gun that he's blasting away with. I might have casually said last month in the previous episode, I certainly said in a letter that I wrote something incorrect, like we haven't seen Muskrat on a cover since 1987. Wrong. He was on the cover to 113. He was on the cover to Special Missions 17 and 19. He was on the cover to 204 and 205. He was on the cover to probably America's Elite 25. He was probably on the cover to 300 because everyone was. So we have seen him on covers. We just haven't seen him big and front and center on a cover since 1989. Cover B.
That Laura Martin, she might go places with her color talent. So it was funny because I ran into Laura at Heroes Con, and I complimented her on the colors she's doing on the covers, and she didn't even realize I was drawing the book. So it's like, oh, you're on the book? Yeah. Well, look at the credits. It's like, come on. But we worked together at CrossGen on Negation, and we did a graphic novel together for a gaming company that never saw the print, never saw print. But Laura's fantastic. She's an amazing colorist.
Cover B is that same art.
Let's read out my amazing.
A listener, viewer, Talking Joe says, when Muskrat shoots his gun on a boat in the sun, that's amore.
Oh, that's amore.
Very good, very good, very good, Talking Joe. Talking Joe, I think you might go places.
I think we've also got what's that top right hand corner, that ship coming down. That's the Cobra.
Condor? I said
Condor. Oh, you said Condor. Okay, all right, okay.
Oh man, Special Missions 29, Mark. I know my Condors.
Yes.
Cover B is just the inks. It's great. Cover C is the 1:10 ratio variant. This is drawn and colored by Francis Portela. It's Snake Eyes in front of that recognizable red symbol that Mr. Pelletier is getting better and better at drawing all the time.
Trying to. Yep.
This is one of these, quote, camouflage covers where the color of the character's costume bleeds into the dominant background color. This is, Mark, this is the second time we've seen Portela draw Snake Eyes in front of this same background, but this is a slightly different Snake Eyes costume and a slightly different pose. And the first time it happened some months ago, we pointed out that this was fun, coincidentally very similar to a Herb Trimpe cover from 2011. So maybe this will start to be, maybe you make a jingle about all the times we get Snake Eyes in all black, staying in front of the ARAH logo in red with more black behind it.
It stands out. It looks good on the stands. So
yes,
it's out.
Yes, he's holding a machine gun and the
an M4 carbine assault rifle.
Okay, so we're no longer calling this an M16 because this is not the 80s.
Well, it's a different. Yeah, it's some sort of an upgraded version of it, isn't it? It's a,
Thank you. Yes,
I think in its own right.
I'll take your words on
the sort of mouthpiece face cover under the visor here has some sort of unusual bevels to it that remind me a little bit of the Snake Eyes redesigned for the Throwdown Snake Eyes costume from around, what was it, issue 260 or 70. But I do think that this is original flavor, original recipe Snake Eyes, and not Throwdown.
Well, and that's one of the challenges with this book too. Is, you know, if I Google specific characters, sometimes they'll have like multiple variations of the costumes. Like, oh, okay, what am I supposed to go with here? It's like
there was that,
and that's where Diana comes in. It's like, nope, use this costume instead. So.
A Marvel artist about 5 years ago drew a cover, and I think Googled that character's costume, didn't get it from the editor, and ended up drawing a fan-created new costume for that character. And I forget what happened. I think maybe I don't know if they threw some money at that fan and sort of bought the design, or just had the artist draw something different. Mark, are there retailer exclusive variants for this issue?
There are indeed. So we have this rather full cover here. It's Cobra Bar, it's called, by Alan Quah, which is available from 616 Comics as a color and also black and white. So it's one of those covers that has got a whole bunch going on. It's got masses of different Cobra characters hanging out at a bar. There's quite a lot of real estate used up by a table in the bottom right hand quarter of the cover. But yeah, a lot of work has gone into this one to add in all of the different characters, I imagine.
Is this where you point out a character or two that are not in the Larry Hama Real American Hero continuity? Did I see who's the Burnout? Who's the Dreadnought that showed up in Devil's Due? Did I see him?
You may well have done. I'm sure there's pretty much every single character appearing in there in some respect or not. I'll just point out the who I've got highlighted on screen at the moment, which is the odd one out, which is Barbecue. So he is obviously not a Cobra character, but maybe he's been added in as the fire marshal, given how crowded that bar is. And on the right-hand side of the screen, it looks like someone's flipping the bird. Do you know who that is, Tim?
I think that's someone holding a beer bottle.
Oh, it is a beer bottle, isn't it?
Mark, I believe they're at a bar.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now you say it out loud. That probably is a bottle and not a finger.
Well,
but,
there's no reason why they, both can't be happening. So
I'm going to guess that this is either Billy, or is this the artist himself, Alan Qua?
This is Rowdy Roddy Piper, who is a sort of is obviously well known for being a WWF
you can see,
wrestler.
You can see his kilt.
But also he was sort of brought into the G.I. Joe world as part of the Iron Grenadiers later on as I think like a fan club convention set or some description. Let me add in to the screen a zoom up there. So as Tim notes, we do have the Dreadnought Burnout behind him. Yeah, there's looks like we've got some other esoteric Dreadnoughts there with the purple mask, and also the one that looks a little bit like Norgahide but isn't Norgahide, and the Snake Eyes looking guy in silver and red. Is that one Mortal? I get them confused.
I think that's from was he from Brazil?
One of those ones.
I'm sure one of our toy encyclopedic knowledge fans will correct us in the chat. You know what? That's that Cobra Commander costume from the IDW for Civil War. Was Crake?
Yeah, I think this is Crake. Yeah, that's the Crake Cobra Commander alongside our conventional Cobra Commander there.
So, it's funny when you compare the black and white versus the color, how much the color carries this cover. Because I think that the black and white is very sparse. It's very just basic line work. Very little blacks spotted on it.
I might go as far as saying
just basic line work. And the color really fills it all in.
No spotted blacks.
Yep.
Mark, are there other retailer exclusive variants this month?
There's a George Vega exclusive variant cover for top shelf comic, not yet revealed. George Vega, a big G.I. Joe fan, who's been doing a lot of G.I. Joe art. I just took this photo from some random website I found. There's a recent piece that he did with various G.I. Joe and Cobra characters for, I think this might have been specific for the DFW show.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
And beyond that as well, we have another cover we've not yet seen by John Giang, who has done a lot of G.I. Joe covers before. And as a placeholder piece of art, I've added in his recent Pythona G.I. Joe classified box art, because he has been double dipping as both a G.I. Joe cover artist and also a box art for the classified line.
But double dipping sometimes has a negative connotation, and I think Mark and I are fully approving of Hasbro hiring comics artists who've done G.I. Joe in the past or do G.I. Joe in the future to do G.I. Joe toy box art. That's great.
That's cool.
Yeah, I could just be obtuse and say, no, you're only allowed to do one. You can't do both. That's just too greedy. But that's fine. No, his box art has been very good on the classified line, and I think he's done all of the Cobra La characters so far. So that's been a lot of fun. So I thought next up will be a plot breakdown of issue 320. So let's find out actually what happened inside this book.
Plot breakdown.
In Springfield, the ninja team is trying to escape in a hijacked Stinger Jeep with Cobra in pursuit. Shooting behind them, they are shooting behind them at Cobras in the pursuit to slow them down and heading towards the Cobra airfield to make an escape. Luckily, Duke sends air cover in the form of Ghost Rider in the stealth jet. Arriving at the docks, Muskrat is unsure how to pilot a Moray, but thinks he can handle it, having experience with a Bayou airboat. They set off with Cobra boats in pursuit, and just as Cobra looks to overwhelm the Joes, the Sky Striker arrives just in time to come to the rescue. Elsewhere, in a very different plot line, on Cobra Island, the recon team is trying to escape in a hijacked Scorpion Jeep with Cobra in pursuit, and they shoot behind them at the Cobras in pursuit to slow them down and heading towards the Cobra harbour to make an escape. Luckily, Duke sends air cover in the form of Ace in the Sky Striker. Arriving at the airfield, Jinx is unsure how to pilot an Aspid, but thinks she can handle it, having experience with flight sims. They take off with a Rattler in pursuit, and just as Cobra looks to overwhelm the Joes, the stealth fighter arrives just in time to come to the rescue. The ninja team are escorted back to the pit just in time to update qualifications on some new weapons systems. There we go. So, I don't know if you saw what I did there, but I essentially copied and pasted the same paragraph of text twice and changed certain words. What really struck me about this issue was that it was very interesting that essentially we had two very, very parallel story and sort of mirroring storylines with one Joe team escaping Cobra Island and another escaping Springfield. There may have been some extra, extra layer of complexity and cleverness about those mirroring storylines that I possibly didn't even meet. Spot.
All I'll say is remember that when you see 322. Like I said,
Cool.
there's snow, Arctic, and desert, and they're very similar scenes, but two different Joe teams. So. Cool.
Because I think of like that Watchmen issue that you can read back to front, and also that Cobra special issue that you can also read back to front, where it's mirroring, and it felt very much like that. It's like almost. I wouldn't be surprised if I was sort of if I cut up the issue and sort of put the pages side by side, if there was like sort of similar panel layouts, or the number of pages for each storyline were exactly the same, or that kind of thing. Was there anything as specific as that in terms of the any of the layouts of the story, that specific poses or beats were being mirrored?
You know what? I actually didn't really realize that was going on in 320 also. I mean 322 was impossible not to notice. So call me ignorant, but now that you're bringing it up, it's like that is essentially the same scene, isn't it? Done twice. Actually, I just opened my comps today. I'm looking through and I was like, man, I don't know what's going on in the printing translation. I'm losing all my solid blacks. Everything kind of looks kind of weak. It's like, I'm gonna have to talk to Tony about that, see what's going on.
Are you talking about the density of the black ink itself, or are you talking about something in the inking?
It might be in the inking. It might actually be color more than inking. But I've noticed sometimes when Tony sends me scans of his inks, the the initial scans before he cleans them all up and, what's it called, applying the threshold to it, that there's more meat to the inks. And then once he cleans them up and stuff, they tend to thin up a little bit. And I'm going to have to tell him, it's like, just thicken them up even more, because he's losing I think he's losing a little bit of the weight that the original inks look like. But yeah, sometimes like if you notice in the background in that second panel where Francesco pushed everything back and put everything in a color hold, so you're losing some of the weight as far as the solid blacks. Yeah, I might have to talk to him about that too.
So, for example, on page 1, where we're looking at the Joes and the Stinger and then a hiss behind them, you would perhaps prefer the black ink of that hiss tank to stay black and not be turned into a color? Right.
And if anything, you can also almost darken up the foreground stuff with like the what's it called? The Stinger. The Stinger and our characters, darken the colors on them and just use lighter colors in the background, but still keep the solid black lines. But there's so many different ways to handle doing comic books.
So Mark mentioned the parallel storytelling here, and we talked a lot about this in the previous issue. So here in issue 320, the first 5 pages are the ninja team escaping, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have this transition page back at the pit, and then we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 page scene of the recon team. They're the ones on Cobra Island.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's them escaping, and then we have this 1-page transition of some Cobras like waiting for the ninjas to show up. And then back on Cobra Island, we're at the harbor, and we have a 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, then it's Cobra Island 1 page, Springfield 1 page, Cobra Island 1 page, Springfield 1 page, Cobra Island 1 page. Yeah, so Larry is, as Mark mentioned with his plot breakdown, Larry Hama is trying to balance these stories and dole them out in equal increments. And if you don't notice it when you read the comic, that's fine. This is not like a wordless issue where probably everyone's going to see it. This might just be something that sort of tickles in the back of your head, where you find it a little more interesting, a little more satisfying, or you, without realizing it, think, the story was sort of balanced this month, because like mathematically and maybe dramatically it was balanced.
And
yeah, I just wish it's kind of cool when you see that kind of thing done in a movie. I just wish, I guess, artistically, I would have done maybe something a little more to really separate the two stories visually a little more. Whereas, like in 322, it's pretty obvious when you're swapping from one team to the other with the scenarios, as far as like one's in snow in the Arctic and one's in the desert. So, I mean, that makes it a little easier. This issue, it's a little more difficult, since everything kind of has the same value to it, but live and learn.
This is also a case where colorist Francesco. Have we been saying it wrong, Paul? I think we've been saying Francesco, but we don't know. Did you say Francesco?
Your guess is as good as mine. I'm hoping. Yeah.
Okay, you two aren't hangout buddies.
No, we just email. So
okay.
And I haven't been able to get the proper pronunciation through email. So
okay, maybe Mark and I will go back and listen to our interview with editor Alex Antone, because I'm sure it came up there. This is also a case where color can make these two different scenes that are running in parallel more like each other or less like each other. And I have talked a lot about how much I like Segala's colors on this book, because they are a little desaturated, because there are not a lot of gradients, and because in backgrounds and sometimes in character tones, there are very subtle textures, which sort of does a version of old printing on newsprint, even though this is modern color and printing on very shiny, glossy paper. But the color doesn't overpower the art, and the color doesn't overpower my eyeballs.
Yeah, I mean, my preference, I always like almost like cell shading, really hard cuts between light and dark versus gradiated tones and like an airbrush effect. That kind of stuff can drive me nuts. So anything that's got like a hard cut between light and dark, I like that a lot better.
This issue is interesting in terms of this issue. It's sort of like these mirror kind of parallel storylines where similar things are happening, and that follows last issue where there was a degree of that, but the interesting storytelling technique that they had there was that each page turn was a scene change as well. So
yeah, I remember bringing that up to Alex. It's like, it's just driving me nuts. It's like every page changes scene. It's tough. Again, it's a challenge. It really is a challenge. I mean, there was a part of me that was thinking I should just draw all of one scene together and then break it up. But then I thought, well, then I don't know how pages are going to butt up against each other, if it's going to make sense or not, or, I don't want to draw the same thing, that in 2 pages, that not realizing it until I put them together. So it was a challenge. It's hard to get a good flow going when you're constantly changing scenes like that.
Paul, if I may, I have a thought that I wanted to share with listeners and viewers. Because when I was younger and reading comics, drawing comics looked impossible to me. And I was sort of surprised that anyone could draw anything that well. And then I got older and I understood that, professionals practice and train. And I never thought it was easy. But I think when I was maybe, 15, I would have thought, why would it be harder to change from one scene to another? You're still just drawing stuff. Either you're drawing trees or you're drawing, a sewer tunnel. And maybe the analogy is, folks, if you watch like cooking shows, or if someone in your home is the cook, would it be easier, folks, to make 3 cakes in a row for the big get together with friends, or a cake and then a big salad and then like a stew, right? Because you've got some of it is nuts and bolts, like, I have to do different dishes because I need that bowl again, or I'm not using that bowl, I'm using something else for the second thing. But it's also a mental gear shift. Like, if I know I'm going to chop a bunch of carrots, and then I'm going to chop more carrots, and then I'm going to chop more carrots, it might just be easier if I can draw a muskrat over and over and over in this Jeep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, it's I guess another way to look at it, it's like when you hear like movie making process, like a lot of times scenes are shot out of sequence, but the actors have to keep in mind, okay, I got to act this way, even though I haven't done the scene prior to it, but that affects how I'm going to be acting in this scene. So that's kind of where, I mean, yeah, it's one thing you can say, well, you're just drawing something. It's like, yeah, but you're also drawing a story. So it still has to make sense. I mean, yeah, I could easily draw something looking completely different over and over again, but there's got to be a certain logic to it, and that's why I say a lot of times drawing comic books, it's a huge exercise in problem solving. Like when you get that initial script and you start thinking, how the heck am I going to do this? And that's where the brain starts working, and you start trying to figure out panel by panel, page by page, how to get it done. But no, you're right. I mean, it's one thing that if you have to bake 3 cakes in a row, that's one thing. But if you have to bake a cake, do an entire, like 3-course meal on the side, and then to bake another cake, and there's more of a process to it.
So to spell it out completely black and white, even with all of these scene changes, and probably sort of helping to sort of group them together, it is, you've taken an approach very much sort of start page 1, draw it sequentially, end on page 20.
Yep.
Keep that flow together. And do you sort of literally start page 1, then do page 2, or do you do like thumbnails of the book first or anything like that?
No, my thumbnails are. I was going to say I should grab a script and show what my thumbnails look like. My thumbnails are so basic and little scribbles. I spend next to no time on my thumbnails because I don't know if it's just the way I am or what, but if I spend too much time on a page, I start to get frustrated and bored with it. So I want to leave all my energy, instead of putting all my energy into thumbnails, super detailed thumbnails. I heard Jack Kirby used to work the same way too. He's just scribble, scribble, scribble. That's good enough. Start working on the page. My bad habit too is that there are very few times where I'll read through an entire script before I start drawing. So I'm throwing even more problems on myself. It's like, oops, I set something up the wrong way early in the issue. It should have been set up. And that's where I just start figuring out ways to make it still work and make it still make sense. So yeah, that's a bad habit I've gotten into sometimes. It's like, just start drawing. It's like, what the heck? I'll figure it out as I go.
Paul, if you don't want to compliment yourself, I can, because that first thing you were saying about your thumbnails are really quick and scribbly and not super detailed. A very good. I'm saying this to listeners and viewers. A very talented professional who has a lot of experience can do very simple, quick, small thumbnails and then just start drawing the page. And doesn't need to like do small thumbnails and then like scan them and blow them up necessarily and redraw them and all that stuff. I think the word is confidence. You've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is if I work and rework something, it tends to lose life the longer it goes. And I just want to try and keep more of the energy and life to the drawing instead of just beating it to death over and over again so it tries to be perfect. I always figure I'll finish a page and it's like, well, that's the best I could do at this time. I've got deadlines coming up. I can always do better with the next page. So it's like that's kind of how I look at it.
And there's a story that's told of the Larry Hama boot camp of creating a comic book where he sort of sat down sort of newer artists to talk tell him some of his tips and tricks, and I think the story went along the lines of he saw the artist process where they've done these thumbnails and then they'll lay out a page in a bit more detail, working out more the detail, and then going to the final board and drawing the same thing again. And I think he said something like, do you get paid for that page? No. Do you get paid for that page? No. Do you get paid for that page? Yep. Yes. Focus on that page.
And then all that kind of goes into the thinking too. It's like you're paid a page rate. If you spend 20 hours on the page, that page rate, you're making like minimum wage. So it's like you want to try and whoops, we lost Mark for a second there.
Oh, I think
oh, there he is.
Mark, was there a dog? Mark, was there a dog in your room and you're making the dog go away?
But yeah, you have to put that into thinking too, is that, you don't want to spend so much time on a page that, so essentially you're doing it for free. It's like, it's all stuff that kind of goes into thinking when you're producing these things.
Mark, do you have specific scenes, pages, or panels you want to talk about or ask Paul about? Because I've got 2 or 3 specific things I'm ready to zero in on. But I pass the mic back to you.
Yeah, I had a couple of observations. So I mean, the high level thing apart from these 2 parallel stories was just noting that this was a real all-out action issue. You got a page in the pit in the middle, and you got a page as a sort of conclusion at the end. But aside from that, it is action, shooting, stabbing, blowing up, vehicle chases.
This one we have Jeeps, we have boats, we have airplanes, we have a little bit of everything in this one.
So yeah, interesting to see just such a bombastic, all-out action storyline, and also what felt to be like a real conclusion of kind of wrapping up the sort of the end tail of this long-running epic that we've seen, and the conclusion to the ninja element of that, and the recon team, and yeah, feeling like it's setting us up for a bit of a fresh start with new stories. I had a couple of observations, one of which was, let me skip forward to the end, that it felt a little bit like at the very end of the last issue, we saw Scarlet and her crew leaving Springfield, and I thought that was the end of that particular sequence, but then we're sort of brought back into that escape again this issue. I think that possibly that's the Hama thing of writing one page at a time and realizing that actually it would be fun to have this pursuit through Springfield continue rather than them just escaping at the very end of the last issue.
Yeah, well, I thought that was a little confusing myself when I first got the script, but
okay.
Maybe someone forgot their wallet or something behind Springfield, and they had to go back and then escape again. So
maybe, how about this? Maybe for the collection, when this issue was reprinted, maybe the yellow caption on the very first page of 320, rather than saying in Springfield, can say just outside Springfield.
Because you notice, yeah, they're in separate vehicles at the end of this story. And then they're all in the same vehicle.
Right.
So
something has happened in between. Yeah.
Yes. So either these HISS tanks that caught up with them blew up the white sedan, or it ran out of gas.
Or something.
Listeners, Paul just shrugged his shoulders.
Well, it's one of those things where, what is it? Is it Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, where he said the most important part of reading a comic book is what happens between the panels? Well, there you go. There's between issues. You can figure that out yourself. So it makes you part of the story.
And with a Hama story, he does like to sort of set us up often in the middle of a action sequence without the setup. So it's not that unusual, and we're only missing perhaps a few seconds or minutes rather than the entirety of a setup as to where how the Joes ended up in the situation that they are. Actually,
that comment about just changing that little yellow caption right at the beginning of page 1, changing that could probably just fix it right there.
I'm happy to be hired by Skybound as assistant to the creative consultant, or
because junior. With the previous issue, they were being chased. Now something could have happened to that white car, so they all had to jump into the same, because that was the other vehicle that they were driving. It was that one and the white car. So yeah, not a huge leap, and they were being chased anyway. There we go.
Diana says in the comments, they all got into one car. They all got out of the quicksand.
Yeah, and into the fire.
Deep cut. Deep cut back to issue 27, was it, or something, where the Cobras all escaped from quicksand without too much need for additional explanation. Another micro moment that I noticed was this sort of action sequence with Helix, and she's quite handy with a knife, and I sort of just thought to myself, oof, this is more than we often see in G.I. Joe, particularly with her taking this knife to that Viper's neck. Well, although, admittedly, he does say "scree," so I think we've got a free pass.
It's actually not to his neck. Oh, that one. Okay, the previous page was to the guy's
eyeball.
Eye. Right.
Yeah.
That one's neck. Yeah. And again, I probably could have gone a lot more. We're trying to make it a mutated cyborg version, but
This is actually
In
a
a huge
question.
battle, it gets kind of tough sometimes.
This is a question for both of you. Paul, what have you been informed? And Mark, what do you remember? When the character of Helix was introduced in a different G.I. Joe continuity, does she have a microchip in her brain, or does she just have an extra specialty about battlefield tactics? Because when I saw this scene, I thought, oh, she's not a cyborg. Diana says of the Viper, he's mutated behind the mask. But of Helix, Mark, do we remember this jumping and attacking that Helix does here? This is something that only she can do, right? Other Joes can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, in this kind of universe, the ARAH Hama one, she's sort of treated a bit like a ninja, just part of the extended ninja team, and it's been established that she had sort of martial arts training from her mother, who herself had been trained by the Blind Master, part of the ARAH clan. In the IDW universe, she's got what they sort of describe a bit like a superpower. I think they call it like battlefield awareness, where she's able to kind of preempt a couple of moves ahead of what the other person is doing. What I was going to hone in on here on this particular page as well was I noted before that as they were sort of changing uniforms, that there seemed to be like a little bit of flirtation as she was getting in her casino goer's uniform, and Multo was getting into that somewhat gnarly cyborg costume, and another bit of flirtation.
It's supposed to be like some, a cyborg blue ninja armor.
And yes, I just strip it off the guy that he just killed and put it on. I'm sure that's that's not too unpleasant. And here Multo, who not forgetting that he's from the Philippines, says, "Grabe, that was the most gangster thing I've ever seen." And she says, "You say that to all the girls." So it's one of these nice little character moments, and it's often those smaller moments are the things that kind of live with us a little bit, like the flirtation between Flint and Lady J in back in the day, that kind of thing.
Well, if I remember,
it's nice that we've
in the previous issues when they were changing into the costumes, she was kind of flashing a look at Multo when he was changing. So it's little things like that, little character things, and that's the kind of stuff I tend to have fun with. So
I hope they make out in a future issue. Paul, don't reveal whatever happens or doesn't happen in future issues. Please don't tell us. I'm just telling the universe that I hope they become an item. Greg Augustin in the comments reminds us that Helix's ability from the IDW, the other continuity, not the IDW Hama continuity, was total organic battlefield awareness. And Diana says Helix has a very specific autistic facet. Interesting.
Hey, I'm learning all this stuff at the same time. So
you should be on our show all the time.
There we go.
So
teach me. I need to learn.
All right, Mark, what else do you have for us?
I had a what I'm going to call an error detected question mark. So where have I got
what an error in my stuff? No way.
I'm trying to find my error detected jingle.
Error detected. Error detected. No prize incoming.
So I'm calling this a light error detected because I think we can either explain it or no prize it away. Although we find out that
fault. Whatever it is, it's all my fault.
So the question mark is about on Cobra Island. We have got a what is this? A Dominator chasing the Joes as they're heading towards the dock, and that is normally a Destro Iron Grenadier vehicle. So what is it doing on Cobra Island? So assuming this isn't a mistake, I've got two potential no prizes, and please in the comments try and come up with your own explanation, and in Diana's case, we might even have a genuine good reason for it being there. Explanation number one. Back in the original Cobra Civil War, when Destro invaded Cobra Island, he left behind a whole bunch of tech, including this vehicle, and Cobra have just, repurposed it and added it to their own armory. And no prize potential number two is that Destro, he's not going to be precious about selling his stuff on to people who have got the budget to afford it. So perhaps Destro has sold some of his spare Dominators on to Cobra, and they've been keeping them in the Cobra garage on Cobra Island.
Yeah, this one I can't really take credit for because I was just drawing what was in the script. So, yeah, that explanation sounds as good as anything else, I guess.
And Diana Davis, why not both? It got left behind on Cobra Island during the original Civil War, and by accident, and then it's a lot easier for Destro to just sell it to Cobra at a discount rather than him going back and reclaiming it. So win-win for both Cobra and Destro. There we go. That's now canon.
I might have a small error detected, Mark, and you don't have to play the jingle as much as I like it. So in the previous issue, Muskrat was driving. What's the beige Jeep that they've commandeered?
I forget now.
Well, I was so excited about it last issue because Paul, this is a toy from like 1994 that we don't think had ever been in the comic book before.
It's got the guns on it, and yeah.
So in the previous issue, Muskrat is driving it,
right,
and Muskrat is on the cover, and he's got the hat without the camo. He's got the hat that's like just a cylinder and it's not wrinkly. It's Wetsuit who has the hat that's wrinkly and has camo. And yet on page 7 of this wonderful new issue, Helix says, if you don't keep it, thanks, that's the Cobra Scorpion, right? The Jeep is the Cobra Scorpion. On page 7 of this new issue, Helix says, if you don't keep it steady, Wetsuit, I can't get a bead on the pursuit.
Whoops.
And I was reading this and I thought, wait, I thought Muskrat is driving, and you can see it 2 panels later.
He is.
Wetsuit is next to him. So maybe when this is collected into a nice softcover, that name could just get taken out and replaced as Muskrat, because Muskrat was driving this vehicle in the previous issue, and that is Muskrat with his hand on the steering wheel. And I don't really care in terms of, like a tiny scripting error, or probably not in this case, but maybe a small lettering error where, a name gets swapped in incorrectly. The only reason why it jumps out at me is that in the previous issue, I had so much fun with, made such a big fuss of these 2 characters, one who's in his normal costume and one who's in his not wetsuit costume, and they end up looking really similar. And one of the things I love about G.I. Joe is how everyone looks distinct. So not wetsuit driving the Scorpion.
Well, Segala and I actually had a back and forth about that because, and I think Diana was dragged into it too. I kept telling him, wetsuit, camo. Muskrat, no camo hats.
Okay.
Because and I tried to differentiate that the headgear as much as I could, but it still kind of has a similar looks. Plus, they were both wearing the ghillie suits, and it's like, oh, it makes it really tough.
I noticed a couple when they get to
my no prize for that mistake though is that, to be fair, Helix is facing away from the driver, so she isn't seeing who's driving, and from behind, given that they're dressed so similarly, could be easy to get them confused.
I don't know.
Wetsuit. He does look like he's not having the best of times.
Like a fish out of water.
I kind of feel like when you're anyway. I had should we talk about the Fang boats?
Yeah, I was just I was going to pop on
Well,
the
we don't
screen
have
there.
to, but
The
No, it's not a bad thing. Mark is reminding us.
there's the vehicle.
Mark is reminding us because I was so excited last issue. Mark is reminding us what the Scorpion looks like in toy packaging format with its 1994 Doug Hart painted toy packaging.
It's such a weird vehicle.
But it's also, I mean, okay, it's got a lot of weird gear on it, but at its core, it's just a 4-wheel drive, Jeep thing. And then because it's not the 80s G.I. Joe, it's the 90s G.I. Joe, it's sort of overloaded with gear, and it's like a funny irregular shape and not so much based on an existing vehicle. Okay, on page, that was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. On page somewhere in the second half of the book, they get to the pier, and there are these water moccasins. Paul, that's a 1984 GI Cobra vehicle. But they don't look like water moccasins because they're a different color and they've got some extra gear on them. And someone says fang boats. And I immediately thought that must be a mistake. And then I thought, no. That's probably creative consultant Diana Davis figuring out a vehicle that hadn't been in this G.I. Joe continuity from a later toy release that could nicely fit in here. And so I did a little Googling before the show started, and I was reminded that as part of the 2012 G.I. Joe Retaliation movie tie-in, sort of movie extension toy line, right?
Right.
We don't, this vehicle is not in the movie, but Hasbro was smart to, take some existing vehicles, add a Transformers style missile launcher thing to it, change its colors, give it a new name. And so now we have the Fang boat, which is basically a beefed up water moccasin. So I think this is the first appearance of this vehicle in this comics continuity.
Really?
So that's fun.
Yeah, it's let's see, there's that page. It's like 2 pages later where you see a good shot of the Fang boat.
Yeah, we see it in profile.
On the bottom there, yep. Yeah, because it's got that airfoil thing on the back of it. And, all right, that's kind of cool. That's the first appearance.
And then, alongside it, we get another not very commonly seen Cobra waterboat, which is the Cobra Piranha as well, fighting alongside it. I can't remember if this has ever been in the comic.
I think I had mentioned it before that Larry tends to throw the kitchen sink into his script. So there you go.
Just to be specific, folks, what Paul here is saying is, in effect, the Joes get away and 2 or 3 different weird-looking, hard-to-draw vehicles chase them, whereas Larry could have had multiples of 1 vehicle chase them. But either Larry knows that every toy is someone's favorite, or Larry knows that Paul is a professional and can handle it, or Larry's, flipping through one of these wonderful websites or books that shows photos of every toy and thinks, "Oh, I want that in there too."
Or I did something in a past life to really, really anger Larry, and he hates my guts, and he's trying to kill me. So there's so many different possibilities.
In the comments, Diana says, Mark, Diana says, sometimes I recommend vehicles or characters. Most of the time, Larry goes through 3djoes.com and picks what he hasn't used much or ever. I don't remember which this was. I've got 2 more.
Interesting observation about the use of the Fang boat name as well, that potentially the reason that this wasn't called a water moccasin may well have been that Hasbro's trademark for the water moccasin expired, and so they would have called it something else that didn't conflict. That's the suggestion from the Figure 6-pack. Yeah, we certainly do know that has been an issue for Hasbro before in terms of losing the right to use names that they've used before.
I noticed on page 19, the second to last page of the comic, we see in the final panel, we see the stealth in profile. We see the cockpit, and we see Ghost Rider. This Paul, do you know this joke about this G.I. Joe character's name? Do you know the joke?
Originally, when I got it, kind of angered me at first that when Larry turned in the script, he was using the joke name for him, and I'm like, I was telling Diana, it's like, how the heck am I supposed to find this character if he's got no name? This character goes, what's the joke that they use? But it,
the joke is that they call him what's his name, or they can't remember
right
what his name is,
and that's how he was written in the script. So I'm like, how am I supposed to find ref on this character? Who is this guy? So Diana was kind enough to explain it to me. It's like, oh,
okay. So his name, so the toy released by Hasbro decades ago is Ghost Rider, and he has never been referred to this in a Marvel or IDW or Skybound comic, because of course Marvel owns that name for comic books. And so Larry invented this joke that no one remembers the name, so no one's going to say it out loud. But I also noticed on the bottom of page 19, Mark, can you zoom in on that final panel? A name is stenciled in on the cockpit, and it says Ghost Recon. Paul, is that's something that you came up with? Do you remember if that was in the plot? Because it feels like a placeholder for Ghost Rider's code name.
No, if I remember correctly, that's it was on the on
the reference,
the toy box reference and that stuff. And I think and Diana, being who she is, made sure that I got to make sure I have the decals and the insignias or whatever else that's supposed to be on the vehicles. So
right, okay,
so, yeah. And that's pretty lousy lettering, so it looks like mine. So
I'm always happy when the penciler or the inker does a little bit of lettering on signage.
I'm terrible at it.
In the era of computer lettering, because then I know it doesn't. Then it feels like it's in the art, as opposed to a thing that a letterer, a less careful letterer, may like slightly miss on the perspective.
Right.
Both Diana and Greg Augustin in the comments fact check me on this. It is in the reference, so the toy does say Ghost Recon. So cool. And then the last thing that I was going to point out is I have not read the next issue, but I have had the plot of the next issue explained to me twice by the guy who wrote it, and all of you know, because that's what's in the solicits now, and that's what's on the cover. But the next issue is going to have Snake Eyes and Dawn on a mission by themselves, and so Larry Hama wanted a reason for them to be separate from the rest of the Joes. And so when I get to the final page here of Paul's issue 320, Stalker says, Snake Eyes and Dawn, you two need to report to the first page of next month's issue, where you're going to be off on your own, right? And part of me likes this linkage to the next issue. What Stalker actually says is, you two need to report to the range. He means like the firing practice range in the AM after PT. That's physical therapy. That's not. And he says, you have to update your qualifications on the new weapons systems we are adopting. So part of me likes this linkage, like setting up the next issue. And part of me also thought that I would be satisfied if the next issue just started and Stalker's dialogue here had more to do with like, good job finishing your mission, or what sometimes happens at the end of a G.I. Joe story, which is like the good guys are a little bit disappointed or deflated because the bad guys have sort of gotten away, or the good guys have to do something all over again. And so what I was actually hoping would happen here is Stalker would say something like, well, even though you got away from Springfield, you guys really flubbed your mission because they found out about you immediately. So I will say this is a comic series where I have enjoyed many final pages, and this is a good final page, but not my favorite final page.
Well, you're going to be, I'm sure, treated to Chris Mooneyham genius in the next issue. So,
and I'm looking forward to 3 great final pages by you, Paul, for 22, 23, and 24.
Well, just imagine though, the reason why did 322, 23, and 24 is because the amount of work that Chris put into 321. So just imagine, yeah, it's probably going to be a tour de force. So.
Right. Wow. But that isn't the end of the issue. We do have a letter page and a particularly great letter there from another Mark. Mark, where are we? Mark Van Leeuwen, a friend of the show, who points out that Mark Seddon, hey, that's me, from the Talking Joe podcast, suggested to me that to send you some of my photos in which I recreated your awesome silent missions with toys. I hope you like them. And there we go. Okay, I lied. These might be the best photos I've ever received. Holy cow, Mark. Your creativity and talents knows no bounds. So thanks for the shout out to us from Mark.
So this is my new goal. I'm telling Mark, I'm reminding myself, and I'm telling everyone listening and watching. My new goal is that Talking Joe gets mentioned in every letters page from now on of A Real American Hero G.I. Joe. And I think it's possible because I write in letters sometimes, and Mark writes in letters a lot. And some of you fine folks write in letters and say, I was listening to the Talking Joe podcast, and I've decided this is how we're going to reach whatever our next milestone is for listeners and subscribers and Patreon backers. We're gonna get more and more people who read this comic to listen to this podcast. Since otherwise, I wouldn't say we're too aggressive about increasing our listenership.
But I think
we do some light promoting at a few conventions, and Mark is very active on our Facebook page.
On the back of this, I think that Mark does deserve one of these.
It's the Listener of the Week!
Listener of the Week, honorary prize there to Mark Van Leeuwen. Thank you, Mark.
I wanted to point out one other interesting thing happening in the letters page. The second letter is from one Thomas Wheeler, who in the letter says, yes, I'm the Thomas Wheeler who had a lot of letters printed in previous G.I. Joe comics. And I think he might be missing out, leaving out an interesting fact there. I think Thomas Wheeler wrote a letter for every Marvel issue. And some of them were printed. And I think he continued with the Devil's Due run in 2001. And I do think got some printed there. Thomas Wheeler also was involved in the Collectors Club and worked a little bit on some of those toys. So that is a name, folks, you have seen previously in G.I. Joe, in the world of G.I. Joe.
Pretty hardcore.
And just to put a pin in something we were talking about earlier, Diana has pinged across the reference that was. Oh, let me get rid of that. Remove. Oh, I put it as background rather than as foreground. Let me put that in a different way. Hold on, bear with me.
Some of those.
There we go.
See, are those pinups I had on my site in the background there?
Yeah. We've got Paul Pelletier, Paul Pelletier background, theme background for this episode.
There you go.
There we go. So that's the reference.
Wait, that doesn't say Ghost Recon. That says Ghost Rider.
Maybe.
Oh, you know what? I'm wondering if I'll have to go back.
It might have been adjusted even. It might have started off as a Ghost Rider and been adjusted so it
either
didn't
that
say Ghost
or
Rider.
or I'm wondering, I'd have to go look at my pencils and see if I had written in Ghost Rider and then maybe it was changed to Ghost Recon.
My pointing out of it was not like, Paul, you've done something wrong.
Oh no, because it
was-
wouldn't surprise me if I had written originally Ghost Rider, and then Diana chimed in and said, "No, can't do that. It's good. We change it." And maybe had Tony change it to Ghost Recon or what. So yeah, I'd have to look back at the pencils. I wonder.
Okie dokie.
I was going to say, hold on. Maybe I can. Well, geez. I will look up on my screen here somewhere.
Paul, is there a big stack of penciled pages right off camera that you're not going to show us from a
Actually, yes.
Did you mentioned your
actually I have these like
let me do this.
These are all the pages from 320 right here. So.
Wait, can you do that again, Paul?
Sure.
Mark, full screen. All right. All right, listeners,
nice.
Paul is holding up the final penciled page on 11x17 Bristol of this very issue 320 with the ninjas coming back in and Stalker talking to them.
And you can see, these are
Big
all
stack.
the pages. So, all right, let's see. Okay, which issue was was it 320? Oh wait,
yeah,
the pencil's here. I can just look at it. I don't even have to look at it online.
Okay. And
while you're finding that page, I was going to point out that
19.
In this issue, Jinx is a flight sim enthusiast, and a little bit of Joe trivia is that Larry Hama is a big flight sim enthusiast. So again, talking to what he knows. I think he likes the zen of a slow-moving flight simulator where it takes half an hour just to get out of the hangar.
Did Larry say
here
that?
we go.
Oh, here we go.
If let's see if I can get this right here. I wrote nothing. There's nothing there. It's just
okay.
Oh.
All right,
so,
we're looking at a close up of the bottom panel on page 19.
So if you look at it, there is actually nothing. I did not write anything there.
Okay.
It's just a scribble. So I don't know if it was Tony who put that in afterwards or what. So interesting. Maybe Diana remembers. I don't know. But yeah. So now looking back, it's like, yep, I didn't write. I just put in scribbles. So the mystery continues.
Cool. So I think we are pretty much there at the end of our coverage of this issue and sort of wrapping up ahead of 3 p.m. Eastern time and Chris starting on over at the full force for our double bill of G.I. Joe podcasts. So just a look ahead to the next issue coming out October the 8th, 2025. It will be issue 321, the next silent issue, and make sure you do your homework. Read G.I. Joe Origins from IDW, issue number 19. Listen to our coverage of that issue that we released just about a month ago now. Looking forward to this issue. As Paul says, if it took as long as it took him to draw 3 or 4 issues himself, then I'm sure a lot of effort has gone into producing this one. So that's fantastic. Yep. Thanks so much, Paul, for coming on the show and joining us once again. It's been a delight. A reminder that you've got a website which sells your original art, including your G.I. Joe art. I would say very reasonably priced, so definitely affordable. All price points there. So put in Google Paul Pelletier art. I think you'll find it's probably the top result.
It's pretty. In fact, that's the name of the site, paulpelletierart.com. And I should be posting probably 320 pages sometime later today. So
fantastic. Have you got anything else that you would like to plug, or any upcoming convention appearances, Paul?
I think the only one I definitely have lined up right now is late this month in New Hampshire at the Granite State Comic-Con. I'll be there. Unless I'm wrapping up the last half of G.I. Joe 324, and then I'll be, I've signed paperwork and stuff. I'm doing a book for a Titan called Mutant Year Zero, which I guess is based on a role-playing game / video game. That should be kind of fun. And then the plan is for me returning to G.I. Joe late in the year, first 2026. So that's the plan for now.
Very good. So for the audience, if you are new to us, talkingjoe.co.uk is the website, and that points you in all of the places that we can be found: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, platforms, and so on. And a big thank you to our Patreon members who joined the Talking Joe Patreon at patreon.com/talkingjoe. A big thanks to Richard, Sam, Bill, Justin, Rob, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig, Frank, Mike, D, Shane V2. This one has got a sort of a boonie hat on, but it might be green or it might be camo. We're not entirely sure. Infinite Entertainment, Patrick, and Gary V. And while we're giving shout outs to our Patreon members, shout out to Shane, who was representing G.I. Joe at Dragon Con as Backblast. Fantastic costume there, Shane.
What was that name?
Shane Simic, that is.
No. The name of the character.
Backblast.
Paul, you should tell Alex you want to draw Backblast in an upcoming issue of G.I. Joe.
Hey, in 322, I got the draw snow job. So there we go.
Right, cool.
I think we need to play innuendo with Paul next time he's on, by the sounds of things. Yeah. He wants to draw a snow job and blowtorch team up issue.
I've seen Shane at a few shows. He's a good guy, so it's a very fun costume.
Tim, where can you be found when you're not talking to me and illustrious guests about G.I. Joe?
YouTube.com @AtomicAbe. My comic book store in Massachusetts is Hub Comics, and my blog is arealamericanbook.com.
Holy cow! Someday I'll have to drive down to your shop.
Please do.
Yeah, hey, I'm up here in Maine, so it's not that long a drive. So that would be cool.
Fantastic. So that is pretty much us done. So I think just remains for us to say thank you so much, Paul, for joining us again and being so generous with your time.
Hey, thanks, guys. This flew right by, so it was a lot of fun.
Great. We've enjoyed your run immensely and look forward to the next few issues coming up. They look like they will be very exciting. I am really full of anticipation. But before we wrap up and go, Tim, is there anything that you would like to remind our audience?
Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Laters.